Welcome to TV, Tennessee Valley Church. Today we're at one of the Tennessee Valley's most historic and beautiful churches, Huntsville's Episcopal Church of the Nativity. The congregation dates back to 1842, and this impressive Gothic revival-style building was built in 1859. That's quite a history. During the month of July on TV Church, we're looking at the very first church in history, the church in Jerusalem, as described in the Bible's book of Acts. Last week, we saw the characteristics of the church in its infancy, as written in Acts chapter 2. Now, if we were to read further through the book of Acts, we would see 11 times when Luke, the author, uses the phrase signs and wonders, or simply signs. For example, in Acts 2 we read, everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. Those signs and wonders, spectacular miracles, were performed by God in order to validate the new church. In Acts 4, the members of that early church noted all the opposition from religious and political officials to this new Jesus movement, and in order to counter that opposition, they prayed, "Now, Lord, consider their threats and enable your servants to speak your word with great boldness. Stretch out your hand to heal and perform signs and wonders." Acts 8:6 reads, when the crowds heard Philip and saw the signs he performed, they all paid close attention to what he said. And Acts 14:3 tells us, so Paul and Barnabas spent considerable time there speaking boldly for the Lord, who confirmed the message of his grace by enabling them to perform signs and wonders. Miracles, these signs and wonders, gave the early Christians and their message credibility. Or again, as it reads in Acts 14:3, God confirmed the message of His grace by enabling them to perform signs and wonders. You see, this movement called the church was brand new. There was nothing like it. The number of believers, of Jesus followers, was relatively small, and they were considered by many to be mere outliers. The church in its infancy was fragile, vulnerable to its enemies, both human and, well, demonic. So in the book of Acts, there is miracle after miracle. I believe in miracles. The Bible actually begins with a miracle. In simple, almost matter-of-fact terms, the Bible commences, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." From the intricate passageways of anthills and beehives to the expanse of the Milky Way and beyond. Have you seen the images from the James Webb telescope released this week? When we see the views from that telescope, we're not looking only at our galaxy as it is today. We're looking at galaxies layered upon galaxies dating back a few billion with a B years. Those images, NASA Administrator Bill Nelson said, are only a little speck of the universe. And if you believe that in the beginning God created not only the earth but the heavens, then believing in miracles isn't so hard. Now, I know there are those who love the moral, ethical teachings of the Bible but just can't buy the miracles. The problem with that is that all those wonderful moral, ethical teachings are wrapped up in miracles. Take the Ten Commandments. The Bible says the Ten Commandments were written by the hand of God in stone tablets, onto stone tablets. Moses was on top of a mountain having a conversation with God amid stories of burning bushes and parting seas and manna from heaven and clouds following the children of Israel by day and a fire in the sky by night. Miracles. And the Beatitudes. Blessed are the peacemakers, blessed are the pure in heart, and so on. Those are found in Jesus' sermon to the crowd on the mountain overlooking the Sea of Galilee. And why was the crowd there? Because Jesus had been healing people with blinded eyes and leprous skin and wilted legs, miracles. The Bible's moral and ethical teachings are intertwined with its signs and wonders. So it's not so easy or even wise to separate the Bible's ethics and morals from its miracles. I believe God still performs miracles. I believe the stories of the signs and wonders in the days of the early church. And I believe God still performs signs and wonders. Granted, those spectacular miracles that the early church witnessed are not nearly as common nowadays, at least not in my experience. Yet I believe God still does perform miracles. A few years ago, I read an article titled, "Science Finds God." In that article, there's a fascinating discussion about quantum or subatomic events, dimensions of reality unseen by the naked eye, where, quote, "behavior of particles is unpredictable," unquote. The article also speaks of chaos theory, based on the observation that in some phenomena, such as weather and some chemical reactions, there's an eerie randomness about how things are going to turn out. That has led a physicist, John Polkinghorne, to suggest that God selects which possibility becomes reality. I'm not going to pretend that I understand quantum mechanics and chaos theory. And for a guy who studied psychology and theology and couldn't pass an 8th grade science class today, to mention quantum mechanics and chaos theory in the Tennessee Valley is a risky move. Yet what I find intriguing is that the more experts uncover about science, the more it is apparent that there's a mysterious realm of reality in which God, should He so choose, can do a miracle, and without violating the laws of His complex creation. I believe some miracle stories are manufactured by people who, frankly, profit from telling them. There certainly are preachers who sell health and wealth, and they have to keep their followers pumped up by a steady stream of eye-popping anecdotes. On the other hand, I believe that from time to time, bona fide miracles occur. Sometimes they might be mistaken for mere circumstances. Why are there not more spectacular acts of God now? Well, that answer is above my pay grade, but one could argue that now we have the Bible, we have 2,000 years of Christian history, and churches are established, well established around the world. So perhaps God has decided His message and His churches don't need the validation, the confirmation, the authentication that the church needed in its infancy. And yet I believe from time to time, in ways that fit His plan, God still performs real, live miracles. Of course, life would be unbearably chaotic if God were to overdo the miracles on our behalf. Can you imagine a world in which God answered yes to every request for a miracle? A football coach prays that his team will win the game. So on the last play of the game, the coach's team is behind by 2 points. As time runs out, his kicker attempts a field goal to win the game. The ball heads wide right. But in mid-flight, the football changes direction, flies between the uprights, and the coach's team scores to win. Or a Madison County farmer prays for rain for the sake of his crops. But a Madison County mother prays for a sunny day for the sake of her daughter's birthday party. So it rains everywhere in the county except directly over the house of the birthday girl. Life would be more than chaotic if God answered yes to every prayer for a miracle. But frankly, it seems like a few more wouldn't hurt. Wouldn't it have been wonderful if on May 24th in Uvalde, Texas, God had performed a miracle? Maybe jammed the gun of the man who killed 19 children and 2 adults. The Ukrainian military could use the kind of miracles that God performed for His people against their military enemies in the Bible. Life would be unbearably chaotic if God were to overdo the miracles on our behalf. But it seems like a few more wouldn't hurt. In a few minutes, I'm going to talk about how we are to live in a time when miracles are not as common as we might wish.
How great this love, oh, it's moving on my mountains. This perfect love, it's casting out my fear. How great this love, oh, it welcomes me like family. anywhere I go, it meets me there. 'Cause He is good, He is God. What I earn, it's not what I got. He is just, yet oh so kind. What I deserve, it's not what I find. What more could I say about my God's love? How great this love, oh, it's faithful through my failure. This trusted love is with me till the end. How great this love, oh, it's closer than a brother. This is love, He died so I could live. He is good, He is God. What I earn, it's not what I got. He is just, yet oh so kind. What I deserve, it's not what I find. What more could I say about my God is love? He is love. I know my God is love. I know my God is love. This is enough to know my God is love. I know my God is love. I know my God is love. This is enough to know my God is love. I know my God is love. I know my God is love. This is enough to know my God is love. I know my God is love. I know my God is love. This is enough to know my God is love. He is good. He is God. What I earn, it's not what I got. He is just, yet oh so kind. What I deserve, it's not what I find. What more could I say about my God's love? What more could I say about my God is love? What more could I say about my God is love?
Melissa George only lived for a couple of hours, but her life has impacted so many other lives across the Tennessee Valley. Amy George joins us today. Thank you for being here, Amy.
Thank you, Lisa.
Swim for Melissa coming up the end of this month, and the Miracle Bash the 1st of August. How did these come about?
Well, you know, not long after our daughters were in the NICU, Chris and I just felt like at the time we were in a position where we could help a lot of people. I was still working as a news anchor here in town. Chris had played hockey, and so we just, and a lot of people knew him that way. We felt like we had a platform that we needed to use. Chris was much more passionate about it in the beginning and really felt like we were in a place, and I just didn't think that emotionally I could do it. losing her was just, the greatest loss of my life. And I thought I just can't put myself out there and talk about her and do these things. And I agree that people need to help, but somebody else can do it. And I finally just prayed about it. And I just said, Lord, if this is the direction that you want us to go, then you are going to have to do the work, because I don't think I can. And after I prayed that prayer, I had such a peace that this was really where we were being called to move. And we did, and he certainly has kept up his end of the bargain.
He certainly has. This has raised more than $4.2 million for the neonatal intensive care unit at Huntsville Hospital. And Amy, I was surprised, over 1,100 babies go through that NICU unit a year.
They do, because we're a regional neonatal ICU. So we're the only level 3 NICU in the state, in this northern part of the state. So every baby born across the North Alabama region that needs extra medical attention is coming to Huntsville Hospital. And those numbers grow every year, Lisa. It is amazing. It's astounding the level of care that goes on there.
All the equipment is so important that
Yes.
you've helped purchase, but also care of the parents. My triplet sons were in the NICU for
Yes.
3.5 weeks, and you feel as a parent so helpless because you can't help your child. You have to rely on equipment and those wonderful nurses.
I have always said there is nothing more unnatural for a parent, and a mother especially, to give birth and then hand that child to someone else to take care of. And I would walk into the NICU, just like you said, some days, and I just felt so helpless. I couldn't hold her. I couldn't do anything for her. And I knew that she was where she needed to be, but it was still so hard. And so that is part of why Melissa's Fund exists. Part of it is to buy that medical equipment that they need so these nurses can provide that best level of care possible.
And Travis is speaking today about miracles, and you got part of your miracle.
Yeah.
And Catherine just turned 17 years old.
Yes.
She'll be a senior in high school.
Yes.
You have another daughter, a little bit younger
Yep.
than her.
Yep.
But you didn't get all your miracle.
We prayed so hard when we realized that I was more than likely going to deliver the girls early. We prayed so hard, and I prayed, and I bargained with God, and I did everything I knew to do. And I remember saying, Lord, if you'll just save her life, I will use that testimony to tell people what you've done and spread your name, and if you'll just let her live. And we prayed so hard, Lisa, and we believed so earnestly that when she died, we were so caught by surprise, like truly caught by surprise. And I had been raised in church all my life, had a very strong faith, but it was the first time in my life that I'd gone through that kind of loss that just shook me to the core. And I can remember a few days after she died, just being in my closet at my home and just crying out to God, like, Lord, why? Why didn't you save? You could have saved her. I know you could have. Why didn't you? And it took me on a faith journey that has been 17 years in the making. And I think it's a journey that will continue. Your faith isn't just a one-time deal that just, you're set and you don't have to work on it and things happen. It is a journey that I've had to take for 17 years of understanding God's sovereignty and His love and His plan for our lives. And I can see a bigger picture now. In my grief, I could not see anything but her loss. That's all I could see. And 17 years later, I've been able to see what we've been able to do through her short life and her death. And I know that probably wouldn't have happened had she lived. And so that deal I tried to make with God, in that hospital room of, if you'll just save her life, we'll use it as a testimony. Well, we still did that.
You did.
And we did it through her death. And so I can see now so many parts of the puzzle that in those early days didn't make any sense to me. And it doesn't mean I miss her any less. It doesn't mean that I would still rather her be here. But it does mean that I can see that God's plan was still a beautiful one. And it is one that we have been able to use to help people. And so I think I find a lot of solace in that.
Well, thank you, Amy. Thank you and Chris and Catherine and Lily Baker
Thank you,
for
Lisa.
all the lives that you've helped touch. We'll put information up about Swim for Melissa
Thank
and the
you.
Miracle Bash.
Thank you.
During the days of the early church, in the days just after Jesus walked the earth, in order to validate the church and confirm their message, God performed numerous miracles, signs, and wonders. But today, in the absence of a lot of signs and wonders, how should we live? Jesus, after his resurrection, appeared to Thomas, who had doubted the reports that Jesus was alive. "Because you have seen me, you have believed," Jesus said. "How good it is for those who have not seen and yet believe." Isn't that interesting? How good it is for those who do not see, Jesus said, and still they believe. Real faith is not the result of witnessing impressive miracles. Real faith is the choice to believe who God is and what He can do, even when we have seen no recent spectacular events to prove it. It's appropriate to pray for miracles. It's even better to find strength in a relationship of faith and commitment to God no matter what. In 1967, an accident left Joni Eareckson Tada, a quadriplegic, and shackled her to a wheelchair. But Joni did not let that obstacle kill her spirit or rob her of fulfilling God's plans for her. She wrote once about a speaker at a Christian camp for the physically challenged. The speaker stood before a crowd of adults and children with various handicaps and said, "I'm tired of hearing that Christians who are disabled need faith to be healed. Maybe one of those TV healers ought to come here and take a look at real miracles of faith." It certainly is a miracle when someone is healed or when God intervenes spectacularly to deliver us from harm. But it's also a miracle of faith to trust God and hang on when the miracles we wanted don't happen. Several years ago, a young man in our church died with cancer. I struggled with his death because we pleaded with God for his life. A number of our deacons, members of his Bible study class, other friends and family gathered at his home. We knelt before him one by one and we prayed. I mean, we prayed. We got down to business with the Almighty. I reminded the group as we began the prayer service that afternoon of the story in the Bible about the men who carried the crippled man on a cot up on a roof and then down through the roof to Jesus. Those men carried their friend to Jesus, but once they got him there, they had to let him go. It was all up to Jesus at that point. I explained that we were going to take this young man to Jesus, and we were going to have to leave him there and trust Jesus to do the right thing. Honestly, I really thought Jesus was going to heal the young man, but He didn't. I joined faithful people in taking that young man to Jesus in prayer, and yet Jesus didn't heal him. But I will still take others. I won't stop taking people to Jesus through prayer, and I will trust Him, His perfect love, power, and wisdom to do what is right. We'd all probably love miracles on demand. Instead, we get what seem like all too rare divine interventions. And even those interventions are not always exactly what we ordered. Please don't let me talk you out of believing in miracles. I will have failed miserably if I mistakenly communicate that message. I certainly believe in miracles. I'm just inviting you to a faith that prays boldly for miracles, that believes God can truly do the miraculous. And I'm inviting you to a faith that does not crumble if, instead, in His love, wisdom, and power, God does not do as we request. Tennessee Valley Church means church has left the building. So has membership. Here's what I mean. You might be feeling a need or maybe even a call from God to be part of our church family in a more tangible way. If you're not able to join us physically here at 600 Governors Drive, whether because of distance, mobility, schedule, or some other reason, you still can be a member of First Baptist Huntsville. Let me send you information on what that would mean, what you could expect from your church, and what your church would expect from you. Email me at travis@fbchsv.org. Let me know of your desire for membership, and I'll help you get started. Join hands with us as we attempt to join hands with God Himself in His mission to the world.